What do you think is the best Canadian film of all time? I know that's a trick question because many of you have never actually seen any Canadian films, I'm sure. And the film that I'm going to review today is considered by many to be the best Canadian film of all time. And I can certainly see why, but I don't believe it's the best Canadian film of all time. And in fact, I think it might be one of the worst films I've ever seen. It's kind of on the level of the made for TV film Captain America from 1978. And I know many people haven't seen that film, obviously, but I saw that film and the acting was bad, the writing was bad, and the actual technique of making the film was bad. Now, in this case, going down the road, the technique is not bad. They did exactly what they were trying to do. The film is shot in a cinema verite style, which means like realist cinema, which it was a school of cinema in the late 60s and early 70s where this film is about. And the whole idea was to show real life through cinema. And the result is a very ugly film that shows the lives of working class Canadians in the beginning of the 1970s. And I think that's why this film is considered to be one of the best of all time because it does show that life and it does show that life pretty accurately. And it's weird because I grew up about 10 years later than this film. I was born in 1977, so 1987, like about 20, like 17 years later, when I would have been 10 years old. But a lot of the poverty that they show is completely familiar to me. So in the beginning, the characters are there's like a long title sequence of the characters, and they're driving in this car, and basically they're leaving the Maritimes. I'll tell you about the plot in a moment. They're leaving the Maritimes and they're going to Toronto, and they're passing through all of these like really poor areas of Cape Breton. And apart from the boats, because I didn't grow up in Nova Scotia, I grew up in Ontario. Apart from the boats, the poverty looked exactly the same. There's like houses that have fallen apart. There's houses that aren't painted. There's overgrown lawns. There's like machinery in the yard. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's exactly what it was like. And I didn't grow up in Toronto, but the way the characters talked in 1970 in Toronto, maybe not the main characters because they're not from Toronto, but like the characters that are actually from Toronto, it's 100% how my family talks. Probably how I talk, actually, too. Because it's this very specific sort of Canadian accent of the working class, of the working poor, of the rural, rural parts of Ontario, because basically that's who the working poor of Toronto originally came from. So that aspect of the film is really, really good, but it looks awful. The acting is awful, and the writing is not great also. So let's talk about the plot. The plot is that these two characters, Peter and Joey, they're very they want to escape the poverty of the Maritimes, so they go to Toronto in their ridiculous looking car, and they expect some help from one of, I think it's Joey's aunt and uncle, but they see the car and then they like pull their blinds and pretend not to be home in like a really ridiculous scene. And it's like Joey didn't call his aunt and uncle and say, "Can I stay?" Because I think he would have done that, right? So that's the first thing that doesn't make any sense in this movie. So then they they have to find a hotel and they don't have a lot of money, and they're very excited because they find a newspaper, and in the newspaper there's lots of jobs. So Joey wants a better life, and these characters, I guess they're supposed to be out of high school, but they're in their 40s. And the actors, I want to be kind because nobody can, like, this is what I look like, but nobody can choose what they look like generally. You can't, that's not a choice you can make unless you can afford plastic surgery. But the character of Joey, oh my god, he's so ugly. He looks like he's been drinking for 45 years. For 45 years and 5 minutes, if that makes any sense. He's got when if you ever left your ball glove outside for a while, like a week or two, and then you found it, and then it's all kind of like, that's what he looks like. He looks like a withered old ball glove, basically. So anyway, he wants a good job in Toronto, so he goes in a marketing agency and he's interviewing. And this is another weird thing because maybe it was different in 1970, but the interviewer says, "Why are you applying for this job? You have no qualifications. You didn't finish school. And I see on your resume like this and this and this, like you were doing very manual work." And it's like, why would you call him in? So that's another thing. Like, he wouldn't have gotten a job. The whole point of he wouldn't have gotten an interview. The whole point of this was to show that he's like working class and he's not going to get this opportunity. But that guy wouldn't have given him the opportunity and there wouldn't have been a scene, right? So I understand on the one hand why it's in the film, but it doesn't make any sense that it would be in the film. So they get a job at a ginger ale bottling company, and that's pretty interesting because it shows this sort of like factory life in the early 70s in Canada. And eventually they're going to get laid off from the factory, and they're not going to have as much money, and Pete is going to have some problems because he got this nice big apartment, he's got a girlfriend that he got pregnant, and he's got like all of this stuff on credit, like a TV, which is kind of ridiculous because the TV looks like it's a TV from the 70s, and he's so proud of that giant box. But anyway, I can understand why that would be an accomplishment back then. But the thing that I don't understand is, I guess this whole point is to show how irresponsible these characters are, or at least how irresponsible Pete is. And that might be, he might be like very irresponsible, but they're both very shocked when they get laid off from this factory. Because they never had any conversations with the people at the factory, like, oh yeah, you're like a temporary worker, you'll be laid off. Like, this is a cyclical thing. Like, they bottle more at this time, so you need to like plan. Nobody ever told them that. Like, when they got the job, the boss never said, "Hey, like, we might lay you off in 3 months, so be prepared." And that is a thing, right? Especially among these poorer workers. Like my dad, he got laid off a bunch of times just because they would hire people and they would need them for a couple months and then they'd fire them. So that aspect is true, but the fact that the characters are surprised by that is not really true. So they get more and more financial problems, and Joey feels that Pete is not really living up to his end of the bargain, because basically they have to move to this really small apartment, and Pete doesn't do anything. His girlfriend is working, but she's pregnant, so she can't work forever. And then when she can't work, Joey is the only one working, and they have like a really bad job at a car wash. And not great, but there's like interesting moments of looking to see what Toronto looked like in 1970. So it's pretty interesting that way. But anyway, they get to a point where they don't have a lot of money, and this is the most ridiculous part of the whole movie. for me. So as I said, they have this Impala. I think it's from 1965 or whatever, and it's painted in flames, and it's got like a mural about the Maritimes on it. So it's a very distinctive looking car. Like, I'm sure everyone in Toronto knows what that car looks like and who drives that car. 100%, like very distinctive. So they don't have a lot of money, so they decide that they're gonna rob a grocery store. So they go to Loblaws and they have like a guy packing the bags, which is like, that was a thing in the 1970s. So there's a person packing the bags, and their big plan is that one will go outside, put the stuff in the car, and the next person will like say, I'm gonna bring the bags to the car, and then I'll come back and I'll pay, which is what a wild plan. So the guy packing is like, I don't think that's the case. So they're trying to drive away in this ridiculous looking car, and the car doesn't start. So the grocery packer, he goes out and he tries to like, stop them. So he opens the door and he grabs the guy. And so they get into like a little bit of a fight, but it's like 2-on-1. And the grocery packer guy is like pretty big, but it's 2-on-1. So he does get beaten up pretty badly. And then they leave him there. And then they feel guilty about leaving him there because it's the middle of the winter. He could die, like he's passed out on the ice and the snow. So, I mean, good on them that they call. But they go back to their house, and because the police are not morons, they're hot on their tails. Like, and this sounds like a lot more exciting than it is, but like basically the scene with the fight happens, and the next scene is them in front of the place where they're renting and they've been kicked out. And basically they make the decision that they're gonna leave Toronto, and Pete's gonna leave his girlfriend, but he might come back for her someday, and that's the end of the movie. But that plot doesn't make any sense because their car is so ridiculous. The police would have arrested them the moment. I mean, like, it's the next day, right? They're hiding out because they want the heat to calm down. But the moment they go back to their house, the police will arrest them, for assault. And then they'll be thrown in prison. And that would be the end of the movie. So yeah. Is this the best Canadian movie of all time? God, no. I don't quite know what is the best Canadian movie of all time. I think so far for this project, I've watched The Fast Runner, although there wasn't any subtitles in the version that I was watching, so that wasn't, and that's a movie that's entirely in Inuit. So the first 20 minutes of that movie is great. I think it's the best chase scene of all time. But I think that it's not actually, I wouldn't consider it to be a great movie. I don't think it's 10 out of 10. It's like 7 out of 10. There's a really good chase scene, but the rest of the movie is a bit confusing, even if you had subtitles. And the other one I watched was a movie called Starbuck, about this guy who unintentionally fathers 500 kids. And the movie is good, but it's kind of an interesting comedy, and I wouldn't consider it like the best movie of all time because there's lots of tropes in the movie. Not that a movie can't have tropes to be good, but it's not. It's not. So I'm still searching for the best Canadian movie of all time. What do you think is the best Canadian movie of all time? Put your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'm trying to get to 20 subscribers by the end of June. Currently, I have 17 subscribers, and this is all in my quest to become the most prolific reviewer of all time. So if you want to help with that, please subscribe, please leave a comment, please like the video, because traction, baby, traction. I said baby. I don't say baby very much. Sounds weird. Anyway, thank you. Bye-bye.